Okay, so this is Toolbox Talk number 9, and it's about substance abuse. So the aim of this Toolbox Talk is to remind and advise you about substance abuse, namely alcohol and drugs in the workplace. So drinking and drugs in the workplace, they don't mix, okay, particularly in our industry, which is perceived as a fairly high risk industry. Both of these have an impact on your brain function, okay, so they can reduce your alertness, your attention to detail, they'll slow down your reaction times. If you suspect someone of being under the influence, okay, you need to tell someone about it. If you're under the influence, you may well be disciplined, you may be sent home that day. Worst case scenarios, you could lose your job. Now, if you're disciplined and lose your job for being under the influence of alcohol or drugs, then you may well find it hard to get work somewhere else. So again, it's really important that if you go out for a night on the town and you start drinking or whatever, that if you go to bed, you wake up the next morning, that alcohol may not necessarily be out of your system. So for example, if you take a shot of whiskey, for example, or spirits, or a glass of wine, or half a bottle of beer, half a pint of beer, should I say, it actually takes about an hour for that amount of alcohol to work through your system. So if you've got quite a lot of drink and you've been drinking into the early hours of the morning, it is likely that going to work in the morning at 8 or 9 o'clock in the morning, you're still likely to be under the influence of alcohol. So looking at drugs then, telltale signs, people under the influence of drugs could well have watery eyes, they could have pinpointed or dilated pupils, constantly running noses, constant sniffing, tight lips, sores, ulcers, they could have body tremors, fatigue, or could be generally irritable. Any of those symptoms in their own might not be cause for alarm, but if you get 2 or 3 of those symptoms, you may well be concerned. It is really important that if you suspect someone being under the influence of drugs or alcohol, that you tell someone about it, because that individual is not only a risk to themselves, but they're also a risk to everybody else, and far better that we get them out of the way so that we take that risk out of the scenario. So if you're concerned, make sure you report it to your supervisor or line manager. Another thing to be aware of is prescribed drugs, because again, even though they're prescribed, it may well be that you're not able to perform certain tasks. Driving is a prime example. So if you do get prescribed drugs, make sure that you read the label or take on board any advice that your GP might give you. And if it does restrict your work in any way, just let your supervisor or your line manager know that, so that we can take appropriate action and maybe put you somewhere else where the nature of the work isn't going to cause a hazard because you're on medication. It's worthwhile mentioning now that 35% of all workplace fatalities involve alcohol or drugs. That's quite a lot. That's a big proportion. So that's the end of that Toolbox Talk. If you've got any questions whatsoever, put them to your line manager, your supervisor, or myself, and we'll endeavour to answer them. Now that you've had the Toolbox Talk, make sure that you sign off on all the relevant documentation and pass it up the chain.